Ma'am, you absolutely cannot board this aircraft. This is private property, not some tour you can walk onto. Derek Collins's voice carried across Teterboro Airport's exclusive private terminal with the authority of someone who'd spent 20 years keeping undesirable people away from luxury aircraft. The ground crew supervisor stepped directly into Amara Sterling's path, his bulky frame blocking access to the gleaming Gulfstream G650. The $60 million jet sat on the tarmac like a monument to wealth and power. Its pristine white fuselage caught the morning sunlight, the tail number N650SA visible in bold corporate lettering that spoke of serious money. Amara approached with quiet dignity, her understated elegance a stark contrast to Collins's aggressive posture. At 38, she moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to boardrooms and business decisions that affected thousands of lives. "Security!" Collins barked into his radio, never taking his eyes off Amara. "We've got an unauthorized person attempting to access the Sterling Aerospace aircraft." He grabbed Amara's arm with unnecessary force, physically steering her away from the boarding stairs like she was a trespasser at a crime scene. His grip was firm enough to leave marks, designed to humiliate rather than simply redirect. "This jet belongs to one of the most powerful aerospace companies in America," Collins announced loudly, ensuring nearby ground crew could hear his authoritative demonstration. "You have no business being anywhere near it." Have you ever been physically blocked and publicly humiliated while trying to access something that actually belonged to you? Collins's radio crackled with static as he maintained his aggressive stance, treating Amara like a security threat rather than a passenger. His 20 years of terminal experience had taught him to spot problem people from a distance, and everything about this situation screamed trouble. "Ma'am, I need to see proof of authorization to board this aircraft," he demanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "This jet costs more than most people make in 10 lifetimes. Where exactly is your employer?" Amara remained composed despite the public spectacle Collins was creating. Other ground crew members had stopped their pre-flight preparations to witness what they assumed would be another entitled passenger being put in her place. "Departure scheduled in 45 minutes, the terminal announcement echoed across the tarmac, adding urgency to an already tense situation. Collins circled Amara like a predator studying prey, his assessment obvious and insulting. "Let me guess, you're here to clean the interior? Stock the galley? The service crews use the maintenance entrance, not the passenger boarding." Tyler Brooks, a 20-something ground crew member, had already started recording on Instagram Live. His phone screen showed the caption, "Karen tries to board billionaire's private jet." "Y'all gotta see this," Brooks whispered to his growing audience. "Security tried to escort this lady off the tarmac. She really thought she could just walk onto a $60 million aircraft." The live stream viewer count climbed steadily. 12 viewers, then 27, then 43. Comments began flooding the screen. "The audacity! She really thought, call security." Amara reached into her Hermes bag, a detail Collins dismissed as probably fake, and withdrew her phone. Her movements were deliberate and methodical as she photographed his name badge and employee identification with professional precision. "What are you doing?" Collins demanded, suddenly uncomfortable with being documented. "Taking notes," Amara replied calmly, switching to her camera app. "Occupational habit." She checked her Patek Philippe watch, a timepiece worth more than Collins's annual salary. Swiss engineering reflected light like a status symbol he couldn't afford to understand. "Ma'am, this aircraft belongs to Sterling Aerospace Corporation," Collins continued, his voice growing more authoritative. "One of the largest defense contractors in the United States. They don't appreciate unauthorized personnel near their equipment." "Yes, I'm quite aware of the ownership details," Amara said quietly. "Are you here as cleaning staff? Kitchen prep? The service teams have specific protocols and access points." Collins gestured dismissively toward a side entrance marked Service Personnel Only. The assumptions kept coming like verbal punches, each one more insulting than the last. In Collins's mind, there was simply no scenario where this woman belonged anywhere near a corporate jet worth more than most people's homes. Brooks's Instagram audience had grown to over 100 viewers, with comments coming faster than he could read them. Someone had screenshot the aircraft's tail number and was researching the registration details. "That's N650SA," one comment read. "Sterling Aerospace. That company's worth billions." Amara opened her phone's notes application and began typing with the efficiency of someone documenting evidence for future reference. Every word Collins spoke, every gesture he made, every witness present, all recorded with methodical precision. "Ma'am, are you seriously taking notes about me doing my job?" Collins's confidence wavered slightly as he watched her systematic documentation. "I document everything that might be relevant later," Amara replied without looking up from her screen. The phrase hung in the air like a warning Collins was too arrogant to heed. Her calm competence was beginning to unnerve him, but his pride wouldn't allow retreat. "Look, I understand you might be confused about where you belong," Collins said, attempting a patronizing tone that came across as pure condescension. "But this is a restricted area for authorized personnel only. I'm just following security protocols to protect valuable corporate assets." "Security protocols," Amara repeated thoughtfully. "And who exactly authorized you to implement these particular protocols?" The question contained layers of meaning Collins couldn't grasp. His security training had covered trespassing and unauthorized access, but it hadn't prepared him for someone who spoke like she understood corporate hierarchies better than he did. Brooks's live stream had attracted nearly 200 viewers now, with people sharing the video across multiple social media platforms. The hashtag #PrivateJetKaren was beginning to trend locally as aviation employees from other terminals gathered to watch the confrontation. 37 minutes until departure, another announcement reminded everyone that time was running short. "I'm calling this into management," Collins declared, reaching for his radio again. "We can't have random people disrupting flight operations." "Please do," Amara encouraged, her voice carrying a confidence that should have warned him. "I'd very much like to speak with your management team." Collins paused, momentarily confused by her eagerness to escalate the situation. Most people in her position would be backing down by now, apologizing for the misunderstanding, accepting defeat gracefully. Amara wasn't like most people. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at the screen and smiled, the first emotion she'd shown since the confrontation began. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Excellent timing," she murmured, more to herself than to Collins. The ground crew supervisor had no idea he was about to become the star of one of the most viral airport discrimination videos in social media history. Janet Morrison arrived at the scene like a general responding to a battlefield crisis. The terminal manager's 15 years of experience managing VIP operations had taught her to handle situations with swift authority, and this woman clearly represented a situation requiring immediate containment. "What's the issue here, Derek?" Morrison addressed Collins directly, treating Amara like a piece of problematic luggage that needed relocating. "Unauthorized access attempt," Collins reported with military precision. "Subject refuses to provide employment credentials or service authorization. Claims she has business with the Sterling Aerospace aircraft." Morrison's assessment of Amara was quick and dismissive. Professional attire couldn't hide what she assumed was obvious. Another social media influencer trying to create content with expensive backdrops. "Ma'am, we cannot permit unauthorized personnel near corporate aircraft," Morrison announced with the finality of airport security policy. "This is private property with restricted access protocols." The livestream audience had grown to over 400 viewers as Brooks adjusted his angle to capture both women clearly. His commentary provided real-time analysis for his digital audience. "Now we got the manager involved, y'all. About to get real interesting up in here." Comments flooded his screen faster than he could read them. "Get her badge number. This is discrimination. Call the news." Airport security guard Rick Peterson approached with measured steps, his radio crackling with routine chatter from other areas of the terminal. His presence wasn't overtly threatening, but the implied authority was unmistakable. 32 minutes until departure window, the automated announcement echoed across the tarmac, adding urgency to the escalating confrontation. Look, Morrison said, adopting what she probably considered a reasonable diplomatic tone. Maybe there's been some confusion about your purpose here. We can arrange alternative transportation to wherever you need to go. Her suggestion carried the weight of bureaucratic inevitability. Most people would accept the path of least resistance, grateful to avoid further public humiliation. Amara's pen paused over her phone screen. Are you asking me to leave, Ms. Morrison? I'm offering a solution that works for everyone involved. Based on what specific assessment criteria? The question hung in the air like a legal trap waiting to spring. Morrison glanced at Collins, who was now fidgeting with paperwork he didn't need to handle. The confrontation wasn't following standard patterns. Based on maintaining security protocols and ensuring smooth operations for our legitimate passengers, Morrison said finally, gesturing toward the aircraft. The legitimate passengers comment sparked outrage across Brooks's live stream. Screenshots were already being shared on Twitter, with #private jet discrimination gaining momentum beyond the local aviation community. A woman in business attire near the terminal windows was typing furiously on her laptop, live tweeting every development for her corporate aviation industry followers. Her network included journalists who specialized in transportation discrimination stories. Ms. Morrison, Amara said, her voice acquiring a new edge of bureaucratic precision, what's your employee identification number and direct supervisor's contact information? Excuse me? For my documentation purposes, I assume you maintain records of all passenger interactions? Morrison's professional smile flickered like a light bulb about to burn out. Ma'am, you're not entitled to employee information during routine security procedures. Amara's responding smile was sharp enough to cut through Morrison's confidence. Actually, federal aviation regulations require terminal operators to provide identification when requested during discrimination complaints. 14 CFR Part 158, if you'd like to verify. The specific legal citation landed like a precision strike. Morrison stared at her, processing the implications of someone who quoted federal aviation regulations from memory while standing on a tarmac where she wasn't supposed to belong. Collins leaned over to whisper in Morrison's ear, but his attempt at discretion was theater quality obvious. His stage whisper carried to everyone within 30 feet. Probably saw it on Google. You know how they try to sound official when they're caught where they shouldn't be. The comment detonated across social media in real time. Brooks's live stream exploded with outraged responses. Screenshots were spreading across Twitter faster than wildfire, with aviation lawyers already commenting on the legal implications. Security guard Peterson shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that his routine call was becoming something much larger. He'd been trained to handle unruly passengers and minor disturbances, not viral discrimination incidents with potential federal implications. Ma'am, Peterson interjected carefully, I'm going to need to see some identification and verification of your business here. Standard protocol for restricted area access. The request was reasonable under normal circumstances. Professional protocol. Completely routine for airport security. These weren't normal circumstances. Amara looked at the 3 uniformed personnel now surrounding her in a loose semicircle. Collins hovering with aggressive authority. Morrison wielding administrative power like a weapon. Peterson represents federal security oversight. The digital audience watches through multiple camera angles, the physical crowd pretending to mind their own business while hanging on every word. The corporate aircraft sitting behind them is like a $60 million piece of evidence. She opened her laptop bag with deliberate slowness, the expensive leather case revealing high-end technology and professional documentation that most passengers would never carry. Corporate letterhead, legal documents, business cards with titles that demanded respect. Verification, she repeated thoughtfully, her fingers moving toward materials that would change everything. Yes, verification is extremely important in aviation operations. Each movement was methodical, purposeful, digital evidence being compiled in real time while her audience grew larger by the minute. "Mr. Collins, how long have you worked for Signature Flight Support?" she asked, referencing the terminal management company with casual familiarity. "That's not relevant to this security situation. 8 years, according to your LinkedIn profile," Amara continued without pause, her research displayed on her phone screen. "Ms. Morrison, your tenure here is 12 years, correct? Started in customer service, promoted to terminal manager in 2019. Morrison's face was drained of color. "How do you have access to public information? Employment databases, corporate organizational charts." Amara's voice remained conversational, but steel was emerging underneath. "Very accessible data when you understand aviation industry structures." The live stream had reached 800 viewers. Comments flooded faster than Brooks could track them. Someone had identified the specific aircraft and was posting Sterling Aerospace's corporate information along with contact details for executive complaints. Morrison was sweating despite the cool morning air, small beads forming along her hairline. She'd handled hundreds of difficult situations during her management career, but something about this woman's systematic competence was profoundly unsettling. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to insist that you step away from this aircraft and allow us to complete our security assessment," Morrison repeated, but her voice lacked the authority it had carried minutes earlier. Amara looked up from her documentation, her dark eyes meeting Morrison's with unwavering directness. "Actually, Ms. Morrison, I think I'll remain exactly where I am." She closed her laptop with a soft but definitive click. "Because this situation is about to become very educational for all of us." The words settled over the tarmac like an incoming storm front. Collins and Morrison exchanged increasingly nervous glances. Peterson's hand moved instinctively closer to his radio. The digital audience collectively held its breath. Amara reached for her Hermes bag with movements that were deliberate and unhurried. The expensive leather accessory sat before her like Pandora's box, and everyone watching, both physically and virtually, understood intuitively that whatever emerged next would fundamentally alter the trajectory of this confrontation. The terminal's general manager had appeared at the edge of the growing crowd, drawn by reports of a situation developing near the Sterling Aerospace aircraft. He surveyed the scene with growing concern, noting the phone recording, the tension radiating from his staff, the calm woman at the center of it all. 28 minutes until departure. The countdown had acquired new significance. The Hermes bag opened with a whisper that somehow commanded absolute silence from everyone within 50 feet. Even the ambient airport noise, ground equipment humming, distant aircraft engines warming up, radio chatter from control towers, seemed to fade as Amara's hand moved inside the leather case with surgical precision, her movements deliberate as a surgeon selecting life-saving instruments. She withdrew a set of aircraft keys first, the Sterling Aerospace corporate fob catching the morning sunlight like a beacon of undeniable truth. The keys weren't just metal and plastic. They represented ownership, authority, and power that no ground crew supervisor could challenge or question. Collins squinted at the keys with growing confusion, his brain struggling desperately to process information that contradicted every assumption he'd made during his 20-year career. Morrison leaned forward despite herself, drawn by the same morbid curiosity that makes people stare at car accidents happening in slow motion. Peterson took an unconscious step closer, his security training overriding his growing discomfort with the situation he'd accidentally walked into without understanding its true nature. The moment stretched like taffy, thick with anticipation and the promise of revelation. Amara pressed the key fob's activation button with theatrical deliberacy, each movement calculated for maximum psychological impact on her growing audience. The Gulfstream G650's engines began their pre-flight power sequence with a low whine that built steadily to a commanding roar that echoed across the entire tarmac. All exterior lights activated simultaneously, navigation strobes flashing rhythmically, cabin illumination glowing warmly, ground safety beacons pulsing with authority. The aircraft door opened automatically with hydraulic precision, revealing a luxury interior that cost more than most people's homes and spoke of wealth beyond imagination. The transformation was instant, devastating, and irreversible. Collins's mouth fell open like a broken hinge, producing no sound except the soft whisper of a career dying in real time before thousands of witnesses. Morrison's carefully maintained professional composure cracked like thin ice under enormous pressure. Peterson immediately stepped back as if the aircraft keys carried radioactive contamination. Brooks's live stream exploded across social media like a digital nuclear bomb detonating in cyberspace. The viewer count jumped from 800 to over 3,000 in 30 seconds, the numbers climbing so fast they became a blur of viral momentum. Comments flooded the screen so rapidly they transformed into an incomprehensible cascade of shock, vindication, and pure digital chaos. Holy shit, she owns the jet! Plot twist of the century! Y'all about to get fired! This is legendary! CEO energy! The teenager's hands shook violently as he tried to keep his camera steady, understanding instinctively that he was documenting what would become the viral video of the decade. His followers were about to explode across every social media platform imaginable: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat. "I'm Amara Sterling," she announced quietly, her voice carrying the absolute certainty of unquestionable ownership and authority that couldn't be challenged. "This is my aircraft." She reached back into her bag with the confidence of someone revealing a royal flush and withdrew aircraft registration documents, spreading them on a nearby equipment cart like a poker player showing winning cards. The paperwork was official, government-stamped, and devastating to everyone who had assumed she didn't belong. Registration number N650SA, purchased 18 months ago for $63.2 million through Boeing Business Jets. Her voice remained conversational, but authority was radiating from every carefully chosen word now. Fully owned by Sterling Aerospace Corporation, free and clear of any liens or financing arrangements. Collins looked at the registration documents with growing horror, each official seal and signature representing another nail in his professional coffin. His 20 years of experience at various airports hadn't prepared him for the scenario of blocking an aircraft owner from her own multi-million-dollar property. The federal registration paperwork was impossible to dispute. Government seals, official signatures, legal language that established ownership beyond any reasonable doubt, aircraft specifications, insurance documentation, maintenance records showing meticulous care. How was I supposed to know who you were?" Collins stammered desperately, grasping for any explanation that might save his career from complete destruction. "Perhaps by checking passenger manifests before making discriminatory assumptions based on racial appearance?" Amara's question sliced through his desperation like a surgeon's scalpel, precise and devastating. Morrison found her voice somewhere deep in her throat, though it emerged as barely a whisper filled with growing panic. "This is clearly an unfortunate misunderstanding. We were following standard security protocols for unauthorized personnel." "Standard protocols," Amara repeated thoughtfully, pulling out her tablet to display the terminal's comprehensive service contract with signature flight support. "Let's discuss protocols in detail, shall we?" The device showed legal documents that made Morrison's face go completely white with terror. Service agreements spanning dozens of pages, liability clauses with financial penalties, discrimination policies that her employees had just violated spectacularly in front of a growing digital audience. Brooks's live stream had reached 5,000 viewers and was climbing toward 10,000 as people shared the video across multiple platforms. Aviation industry professionals were recognizing the aircraft and company names, understanding the magnitude of what they were witnessing. "Ms. Morrison, your terminal contract with Signature Flight Support includes specific anti-discrimination provisions. Section 12.4, subsection C, if you'd like to review the legal language." She swiped to the relevant clause with the precision of a corporate lawyer, displaying legal text that could terminate contracts and destroy entire careers. The language was dense with federal regulations, penalty structures, and compliance requirements that most people would never encounter. Violation of civil rights protections results in immediate contract review and potential termination of services. Amara read aloud with prosecutorial precision. Your facility handles approximately $47 million in annual business across all corporate clients. She paused for effect, letting the financial implications sink in like poison. Sterling Aerospace represents $12 million of that annual revenue, roughly 25.5% of your total business operations. The financial mathematics were crushing Morrison like an avalanche of consequences she'd never considered. $12 million in annual contracts tied directly to the woman they'd just humiliated publicly before thousands of witnesses. The terminal employed 47 people whose jobs depended entirely on maintaining corporate relationships. Peterson's radio crackled with incoming calls from other security personnel who'd heard about the situation. He ignored the communication, too stunned to respond coherently to what he was witnessing. But there's significantly more information you need to understand, Amara continued, reaching back into her bag with the supreme confidence of someone holding all the cards in a game where careers and livelihoods were the stakes. She withdrew a business card holder made of platinum and leather, selecting a card with the precision of a surgeon choosing instruments for a delicate operation. The cardstock was expensive European paper, embossed with corporate logos that spoke of serious money and institutional power. Amara Sterling, Chief Executive Officer, Sterling Aerospace Corporation. The title hit Morrison and Collins like a physical blow to the stomach. Not just an aircraft owner, not just a wealthy passenger with expensive taste. The CEO of a major defense contractor with federal government connections and the institutional power to destroy entire careers with a single executive decision. Sterling Aerospace wasn't just any company. It was a billion-dollar corporation with Department of Defense contracts, NASA partnerships, and the kind of political connections that could reach congressional offices. Collins made a sound somewhere between a whimper and a death rattle, understanding that his mortgage payments, his children's college funds, his health insurance, everything connected to employment that was evaporating in high definition before a global audience. "Please," Morrison whispered, her voice breaking like thin ice under enormous pressure. "We didn't know who you were. This was just standard security procedure. We can handle this internally through proper corporate channels, Ms. Morrison." Amara's interruption was velvet soft, but absolutely final, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to boardroom negotiations and million-dollar decisions. 6,000 people are currently watching this live stream in real time. Airport security cameras have recorded everything from multiple strategic angles. Dozens of passengers have independent video documentation stored on personal devices. She gestured to the crowd surrounding them, phones still recording continuously like a digital firing squad, creating permanent evidence that would live forever on the internet. The phrase, "handle internally," became obsolete when you decided to physically block a Fortune 500 CEO from accessing her own $63 million aircraft. The live stream had reached 8,000 viewers, with local news outlets starting to monitor the story through social media algorithms. Aviation journalists were recognizing the company names and understanding the significance of what they were witnessing. Peterson stood completely paralyzed, understanding he'd witnessed career-ending discrimination broadcast in ultra-high definition to a rapidly growing global audience. His security training had covered trespassing and unauthorized access scenarios, but nothing had prepared him for this level of corporate authority. The terminal's general manager was pushing through the crowd now, his face pale with recognition and growing horror. He'd seen Amara's photograph in corporate communications, knew exactly who Sterling Aerospace was, understood the catastrophic magnitude of what his employees had just done. "The live stream audience is approaching 10,000 viewers," Amara noted, checking her phone with casual authority. "Screenshots are spreading across Twitter at viral velocity. Local news stations are monitoring social media feeds for breaking stories." She closed her tablet and returned it to her bag, then lifted the aircraft keys like a prosecutor presenting murder weapon evidence in a capital case. The metal and plastic looked fundamentally different now, not just access tools, but symbols of authority that no ground crew could challenge. 24 minutes until scheduled departure, she noted, consulting her precision Swiss timepiece that reflected the quality of executive compensation packages. I believe we need immediate consultation with your operations management, legal department, and quite possibly your crisis communication team. The corporate authority in her voice was unmistakable now, no longer hidden behind the facade of a confused passenger seeking assistance. Not someone trying to access restricted areas without permission, but the CEO of a company that could eliminate their entire operation with a single contract cancellation. Collins slumped against a baggage cart, completely defeated, and understanding his termination was inevitable. Morrison fumbled for her radio with trembling hands, trying to call supervisory backup that was already too late to save anyone's career. Peterson remained frozen in place, watching corporate power destroy racial assumptions in real time. The transformation was complete and irreversible. The supposed problem passenger had revealed herself as the most powerful person at Teterboro Airport. But CEO Sterling wasn't finished delivering devastating revelations. "There's additional critical information you need to understand immediately," she announced, her voice projecting across the tarmac with the authority of someone who controlled billion-dollar defense contracts and had congressional representatives on speed dial. The live stream audience pressed closer to their screens, sensing more revelations coming. The physical crowd held its collective breath. News vans were racing toward the airport with camera crews. Sterling Aerospace Corporation doesn't just own this aircraft and maintain this passenger account. Strategic pause, digital drum roll, career-ending suspense building to crescendo. We also hold the primary maintenance and service contract for this entire terminal facility. The implications struck like successive tsunamis, destroying everything in their path. This transcended individual employment situations completely. This represented the institutional power to eliminate 47 jobs, shut down terminal operations entirely, and destroy a multi-million-dollar business relationship that supported entire families. The viral video was metamorphosing into a corporate apocalypse broadcast live to a global audience that would remember this moment forever. Stock prices would fluctuate based on social media sentiment. Corporate executives would demand detailed explanations. Congressional representatives would ask pointed questions about discrimination in federally regulated transportation facilities. The quiet woman they'd dismissed as a security threat controlled their entire professional existence. American capitalism had just revealed its true power structure in real time. The terminal's general manager, William Hayes, arrived at the crisis scene like a fire chief responding to a 5-alarm blaze that threatened to consume everything he'd built over 15 years of careful relationship management. His face was ashen with recognition and growing horror as he absorbed the magnitude of what his employees had just done. "Ms. Sterling," he said, his voice carrying the desperate respect of someone trying to prevent a corporate catastrophe. "I'm William Hayes, General Manager. How can we resolve this situation professionally and immediately?" Amara's smile was razor-sharp, carrying the cutting edge of executive authority that could slice through careers like a surgical blade. "Mr. Hayes, your employees just violated multiple federal statutes and contractual obligations in front of a digital audience that's now approaching 12,000 people." She opened her tablet again, displaying Sterling Aerospace's comprehensive financial data with the precision of a forensic accountant presenting evidence in a corporate fraud trial. The numbers appeared on screen like artillery shells landing on target. "Let's discuss the mathematics of discrimination in private aviation, shall we?" The first screen showed Sterling Aerospace Corporation's annual financial performance in devastating detail. Revenue streams, profit margins, government contracts, Defense Department relationships. The kind of institutional power that could reshape entire industries. Sterling Aerospace reported $2.8 billion in revenue for fiscal year 2023. Our defense contracts with the Pentagon total $1.2 billion annually. NASA partnerships generate an additional $340 million. Hayes's corporate composure began cracking like a dam under enormous pressure. He understood exactly where this financial presentation was heading, and the destination looked like a professional apocalypse. "Our private aviation operations represent a relatively small segment. Approximately $47 million annually in aircraft operations, maintenance contracts, and terminal services. Amara swiped to the next screen, revealing Department of Transportation enforcement data that made Morrison physically ill. Federal statistics. Discrimination complaints. Penalty structures that could destroy corporate reputations overnight. The DOT received 1,247 discrimination complaints against private aviation facilities last year. Teterboro Airport accounted for 23% of those complaints, the highest rate in the northeastern United States. She pulled up enforcement actions with the efficiency of a Supreme Court clerk presenting legal precedents, case numbers, settlement amounts, corporate penalties that had destroyed smaller operations entirely. Average federal fine per proven discrimination incident, $127,500. Your facility currently has 6 open investigations pending with federal oversight agencies. Collins made a strangled noise from his position against the baggage cart, watching his career statistics being presented like evidence in a criminal trial. Morrison was sweating through her management uniform despite the cool morning air. But today's incident involves additional federal violations beyond standard discrimination complaints, Amara continued with prosecutorial precision that would make Supreme Court justices proud. She pulled up federal statutes with the speed of someone who'd memorized corporate law during her MBA studies at Wharton Business School. 18 U.S.C. Section 1441. Interference with lawful business operations carries penalties up to $250,000 per incident. 42 U.S.C. Section 1981, civil rights violations allow unlimited monetary damages in federal court. The live stream had exploded to 15,000 viewers as news outlets began embedding the stream in breaking news coverage. Private jet discrimination was trending nationally on Twitter, with aviation lawyers already commenting on the legal implications. Brooks's phone was overheating from the viral traffic, but he kept recording, understanding he was documenting corporate justice in real time. Hayes attempted desperate damage control with the efficiency of someone trying to stop arterial bleeding with bandages. Ms. Sterling, we can arrange immediate comprehensive retraining for all personnel. Mr. Hayes, retraining doesn't address systematic discrimination patterns documented across multiple incidents over 18 months. Amara's voice cut through corporate deflection like a laser-guided missile. This isn't isolated employee misconduct. This is institutional failure requiring federal oversight and contractual consequences. She displayed a comprehensive spreadsheet that made Hayes's face go completely white with terror. Data compilation that represented months of investigation and documentation. I've personally documented identical discrimination incidents at this terminal in March, January, and November of last year. Same behavioral patterns. Same racial profiling assumptions, same institutional responses that protect employees rather than addressing discrimination. The data was absolutely devastating. Timestamps, employee names, witness statements, video evidence from security cameras that Hayes thought nobody accessed or reviewed. Your Employee Handbook, Section 7.3, explicitly prohibits passenger profiling based on appearance or assumed economic status. Mr. Collins violated written corporate policy. Collins began sobbing quietly, understanding his termination was inevitable and his professional reputation was destroyed forever. Your management protocols, page 23, require supervisory consultation with security footage review before passenger removal. Ms. Morrison violated established procedures. Morrison's career was disintegrating in real time before a global audience that would remember this moment forever. More significantly, Amara continued, pulling up internal signature flight support data that shouldn't have been accessible to outside parties, your corporate diversity metrics show systematic institutional failures. Hayes stared at the confidential information in horror. How did you obtain restricted corporate data? Sterling Aerospace maintains comprehensive background investigation capabilities for our federal defense contracts, Amara replied, with casual authority that spoke of government connections. Amazing what databases become accessible when you hold appropriate security clearances. The revelation sent shockwaves through the growing crowd and live stream audience. A Fortune 500 CEO with federal security clearance access to corporate databases was every terminal manager's absolute worst nightmare scenario. African-American passengers filed discrimination complaints against this facility at rates 340% higher than statistical population representation, she read from internal corporate metrics. Latino passengers, 280% higher. Asian passengers, 190% higher. The systematic discrimination data was crushing Hayes like a corporate avalanche that would bury his career permanently. Here's your current situation, Mr. Hayes. This incident is being live-streamed to 16,000 people with permanent digital archiving. Video evidence has been captured from multiple angles. Federal civil rights violations are documented and witnessed by thousands. Amara's tablet displayed a breakdown of potential consequences that read like a corporate death sentence written in legal terminology. Option 1. Immediate termination of involved employees pending federal investigation. Mandatory bias training for all customer-facing staff within 30 days. Public apology and comprehensive policy reform announcement. Settlement payment of $200,000 to avoid federal prosecution and civil rights litigation. Hayes calculated rapidly, his mind racing through financial implications. The settlement was expensive but manageable compared to federal court proceedings that could drag on for years. Option 2. Federal civil rights investigation proceeds with full legal discovery and subpoena power. Congressional subpoenas for executive testimony on systematic discrimination. Department of Justice prosecution under federal civil rights statutes. Potential criminal charges for institutional discrimination patterns. The second option carried implications that could reach Signature Flight Support's corporate headquarters and destroy executive careers across multiple management levels. Congressional hearings are broadcast on C-SPAN, Mr. Hayes. Very public proceedings, very embarrassing corporate exposure. Stock prices tend to suffer dramatically during federal civil rights investigations. She pulled up Signature Flight Support's current stock price, $47.23 per share, with institutional investors holding major positions. United Airlines lost 18% of stock value during their 2017 passenger removal investigation. Delta dropped 12% after discrimination lawsuits in 2019. Southwest fell 15% following disability discrimination charges. The financial mathematics were absolutely terrifying. Signature Flight Support had 89 million shares outstanding across institutional and retail investors. A 15% stock decline would eliminate $630 million in market capitalization overnight. 18 minutes until scheduled departure, Amara noted, checking her precision timepiece with executive authority. I need a definitive decision, Mr. Hayes. Federal investigation or corporate resolution with immediate implementation. The live stream audience was watching corporate America negotiate with executive power in real time. Comments flooded social media demanding justice and accountability. News outlets were preparing lead stories about private aviation discrimination. Hayes pulled out his phone with trembling hands, speed-dialing Signature Flight Support's corporate legal department. The conversation was brief, desperate, and decisive. "Ms. Sterling," he said after hanging up, his voice carrying the defeat of complete corporate surrender, "we accept option 1 with full compliance to your requirements and immediate implementation." "Excellent executive decision," Amara replied with the satisfaction of someone who'd just won a billion-dollar negotiation. "Let's document this agreement through proper legal channels." She opened a corporate settlement application on her tablet, creating an official record that would become part of permanent business archives and federal oversight files. "Mr. Collins, you are terminated immediately without severance pending completion of this federal investigation. Ms. Morrison, you are demoted to entry-level customer service with mandatory sensitivity training and probationary employment status." Both employees nodded miserably, understanding they were fortunate to avoid federal prosecution and criminal charges. Public apology will be issued within 4 hours across all corporate social media platforms. Settlement payment processed within 48 hours through corporate wire transfer. Policy changes implemented within 15 business days with federal oversight monitoring. Hayes signed the digital agreement with hands that shook like leaves in a hurricane, understanding he was saving his company from potential federal destruction and congressional investigation. One final requirement for ongoing compliance, Amara added with the authority of someone accustomed to corporate negotiations. Monthly discrimination audits conducted by independent federal contractors with public reporting of results. The ongoing oversight would prevent future incidents while maintaining federal monitoring of corporate behavior and employee conduct. Collins was escorted from the premises by airport security within 30 minutes, his 20-year career ending in a perp walk witnessed by 18,000 live-stream viewers. Morrison remained at reduced authority, stripped of management responsibilities. The live stream had reached 22,000 viewers as the video spread across every social media platform. Corporate accountability was being served through executive authority rather than federal prosecution. Signature Flight Support would announce comprehensive diversity initiatives within hours, trying to control narrative damage before financial markets opened Monday morning. Justice had been delivered through corporate power rather than legal proceedings. The transformation of Teterboro Airport's private terminal was swift and absolute. Within 90 minutes of Amara's corporate revelation, Signature Flight Support's crisis management machinery shifted into overdrive with the efficiency of a Fortune 500 company desperately trying to prevent total reputational collapse. Collins was escorted from the premises by airport security, his 20-year career ending in a perp walk witnessed by 25,000 live-stream viewers. His company ID badge, access cards, and terminal credentials were confiscated before he reached the employee parking lot. The man who had physically blocked a CEO from her own aircraft was now permanently banned from every Signature Flight Support facility nationwide. Morrison remained at the terminal, but her management authority had been stripped completely. Her supervisor access codes were deactivated within minutes. The woman who had assumed corporate ownership was impossible for a black passenger was now taking orders from junior customer service representatives. The damaged relationship between Sterling Aerospace and the terminal required immediate corporate intervention. Hayes worked frantically on his laptop, coordinating damage control from the gate area itself. The optics mattered, resolving the crisis publicly where it had exploded, rather than hiding behind closed boardroom doors and corporate spin. "Ms. Sterling," Hayes said, looking up from his screen with the desperation of someone trying to save his own career, "Corporate Communications has prepared the public apology statement. Would you review it before publication across all company platforms?" Amara read the document with the analytical precision of a CEO who'd negotiated billion-dollar defense contracts with Pentagon officials. The language was appropriately contrite without admitting criminal liability that could trigger additional federal investigations. "Add specific mention of measurable policy changes," she instructed with executive authority. "Passengers need concrete actions with timelines, not corporate platitudes and empty promises." The revised apology was posted to Signature Flight Support's social media accounts within 2 hours of the incident. It acknowledged inappropriate employee conduct, announced immediate termination and demotion, and detailed comprehensive policy reforms already being implemented across all terminal locations. The settlement payment of $200,000 was processed through corporate wire transfer systems with the speed that only institutional money could command. Half would fund civil rights organizations focused on transportation equality. Half would establish passenger advocacy programs at minority-serving universities. But the most significant changes were systematic rather than financial. Signature Flight Support's Excellence Through Inclusion customer service protocol launched within 72 hours across all corporate locations. Every terminal employee would receive 40 hours of bias recognition training instead of the previous 4-hour diversity orientation. Role-playing scenarios would include executive encounters, cultural sensitivity situations, and discrimination prevention protocols. A passenger advocacy application was developed and deployed within 10 days. Travelers could report discrimination incidents directly to federal oversight agencies through encrypted submissions that bypassed internal corporate filtering systems designed to suppress complaints. Monthly discrimination audits became mandatory across all signature flight support facilities nationwide. Independent federal contractors would review customer complaints, employee conduct records, and security camera footage to identify pattern discrimination before it reached viral video status. The Terminal Body Camera program launched at 15 major airports within 30 days. Gate agents, security personnel, and customer service managers were required to wear recording devices during all passenger interactions. The footage would be reviewed by federal oversight teams and made available for discrimination investigations. Customer complaint response times were reduced from the industry standard of 10 business days to 12 hours maximum. Every complaint would receive individual investigation with documented resolution provided to both the passenger and federal monitoring agencies. Executive compensation was restructured across signature flight support to include discrimination metrics in performance evaluations. Customer service violations would directly impact corporate leadership bonuses. Systematic bias patterns would trigger executive performance reviews that could result in termination. The $100,000 donation to civil rights organizations was announced with significant corporate publicity, but the ongoing monthly audit costs would exceed that amount every quarter. Real change was expensive, which made it effective and sustainable. Congressional representatives began drafting the Private Aviation Passenger Rights Act within a week of the viral video. The legislation would require federal discrimination reporting across all private transportation industries. Amara's incident had become the catalyst for nationwide policy reform. Other private aviation companies preemptively updated their policies rather than risk similar viral exposure and corporate destruction. NetJets, FlexJet, Wheels Up, and VistaJet all announced enhanced diversity training programs before federal pressure could force compliance. The ripple effects extended beyond aviation into luxury service industries. Five-star hotels, exclusive restaurants, and private clubs began reviewing their customer service protocols. No corporation wanted to become the next viral discrimination case study with congressional oversight. Amara's strategic approach had demonstrated the power of corporate authority over emotional confrontation. She hadn't raised her voice, made personal threats, or demanded special treatment. She had simply revealed her institutional power at the precise moment when it would create maximum systematic change. The live stream video exceeded 3 million views within a week across all platforms. #Own Your Space became a rallying cry for minority business owners. Corporate power inspired countless social media posts about economic authority overcoming racial assumptions. Hayes was transferred to corporate headquarters to oversee the new discrimination prevention program nationwide. His crisis management skills had saved signature flight support from federal prosecution, earning him a promotion despite presiding over the initial incident. The Teterboro terminal was redesigned with improved passenger comfort features and cultural sensitivity displays. A memorial plaque, discreetly placed but permanently installed, acknowledged the incident and signature flight support's commitment to excellence through inclusion. Collins enrolled in community college business management courses, trying to rebuild his understanding of modern corporate culture. His termination became a teaching moment about the cost of assumptions in customer service industries. Morrison advocated for inclusion policies at private aviation conferences, transforming her demotion into expertise about discrimination prevention. Her lived experience of witnessing corporate authority made her a credible voice for systematic reform. The quiet revolution had succeeded through economic leverage rather than social media outrage. Systematic change replaced individual revenge. Corporate accountability emerged from institutional power rather than viral shaming alone. Signature Flight Support stock price initially dropped 4.1% on news of the incident but recovered within 3 weeks as investors recognized the company's proactive response. The systematic reforms actually improved customer satisfaction ratings and reduced legal liability exposure significantly. Most importantly, other passengers began traveling with increased confidence that discrimination would face immediate corporate consequences. The video had created a precedent that service industry employees could no longer ignore the possibility of serving executives, government officials, or other powerful individuals. Business ownership has revealed itself as the ultimate protection against discrimination in capitalist society. 18 months later, CEO Amara Sterling stood before a packed Senate Commerce Committee hearing room, her Sterling Aerospace corporate pin gleaming under C-SPAN cameras. The committee had called her to testify about systemic discrimination in luxury transportation industries. The incident at Teterboro wasn't isolated, she told the assembled senators with the calm authority that had made her a Fortune 500 leader. It was symptomatic of institutional assumptions that pervade service industries nationwide. Her methodical approach had become a template for executive-level civil rights advocacy. Document everything systematically. Maintain professional composure under pressure. Reveal institutional power strategically. Use economic leverage as a weapon against discriminatory assumptions. The video from that morning had fundamentally changed how discrimination incidents were addressed in corporate America. Business owners now understood that quiet authority could be more devastating than explosive anger. Strategic thinking defeated loud prejudice every single time. Brooks's live stream had launched his career as a social justice content creator. His Instagram following grew to 800,000 people who wanted real-time accountability for corporate discrimination. He documented 15 similar incidents across different industries, always armed with legal knowledge Amara had taught him during follow-up conversations. The original video reached 27 million views across all platforms, inspiring a generation of minority entrepreneurs to understand their economic rights. Comment sections became educational forums where people shared discrimination experiences and learned about corporate leverage. Signature Flight Support became an unlikely success story in corporate transformation. Their systematic reforms reduced discrimination complaints by 89% within the first year. Customer satisfaction ratings improved dramatically across all demographic groups. Employee morale increased as workers felt proud of their company's commitment to authentic inclusion. Collins completed his business management program and became a diversity training consultant specializing in aviation services. His lived experience of perpetrating executive-level discrimination made him uniquely qualified to help others recognize unconscious bias patterns. He'd transformed his career-ending moment into purposeful advocacy work. Morrison was promoted to Regional Inclusion Manager after excelling in her reformed role. She spoke at industry conferences about the importance of treating every passenger with executive-level respect, regardless of appearance or assumptions about economic status. But the most significant change was cultural rather than simply corporate. The phrase, "You never know who you're talking to," evolved beyond warning into wisdom. CEOs, federal judges, celebrities, and government officials traveled constantly, observing how they were treated by service industry workers who made assumptions. Amara's quiet power had demonstrated that authority didn't require volume or confrontation. Economic competence spoke louder than emotional appeals. Corporate knowledge was more effective than social media outrage alone. The story resonated across communities that had experienced similar assumptions about their economic status. Black entrepreneurs shared their own encounters with service industry prejudice. The video became required viewing in business school programs nationwide. Corporate America learned that viral videos could destroy decades of reputation building within hours. The cost of comprehensive bias training seemed insignificant compared to federal investigations, congressional hearings, and systematic boycotts. Most importantly, the incident proved that systematic change was possible when individual economic power met institutional accountability. One person's refusal to accept discriminatory treatment had reformed an entire industry. These are the real-life stories that demonstrate economic empowerment in action. Touching stories of business leaders who refuse to accept assumptions about their capabilities. Black stories that showcase the power of preparation, strategic thinking, and institutional leverage. Life stories like Amara's remind us that ownership should never be questioned based on appearance. That economic authority can move mountains of prejudice. that corporate power exists to protect entrepreneurs from discrimination, but only when people have the courage and resources to invoke it strategically. The live stream from Teterboro continues to educate new viewers every day. Business schools use it in case studies. Corporate trainers show it to emphasize the cost of executive-level bias. Entrepreneurs reference it when facing similar discrimination. Change happened because one person refused to be diminished by other people's economic assumptions. Because she came prepared with ownership documentation, institutional authority, and the strategic patience to use both effectively. If you've experienced discrimination in private aviation, luxury hotels, exclusive restaurants, or any premium service industry, remember Amara's example. Document everything systematically. Know your economic rights. Maintain professional composure. Reveal your authority when it will create maximum systematic impact. Your voice matters in fighting institutional economic prejudice. Your story could be the catalyst for industry-wide corporate reform. Your dignity is worth defending through economic knowledge rather than emotional confrontation alone. Share your discrimination experiences in the comments below. Tell us how you've used business ownership or economic leverage to combat bias. Your stories educate others about recognizing and responding to executive-level prejudice. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more stories of quiet economic power overcoming loud assumptions. Ring the notification bell because these success stories need amplification across every business community. Share this video if you believe ownership should never be questioned based on racial appearance. If you understand that economic knowledge is the ultimate weapon against service industry discrimination. If you know that real change requires strategic corporate thinking rather than viral anger alone. Together, we're rewriting the rules about how discrimination gets challenged and defeated in capitalist society. One business owner at a time. One Fortune 500 executive at a time. One quiet economic victory at a time. The next time someone assumes you can't afford premium services, remember CEO Sterling, stay professionally composed, document everything systematically, and reveal your economic power when it will create the most positive systematic change.